Hello and welcome to the Supernatural track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are looking at our favorite episodes, the 120 favorite episodes, and this is the 5th installment. So, there's just so much to love. But before we dive into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a fan of Supernatural since season 3. I've been cracking up Melissa since season 14. I've been writing fanfic since 2012. I'm also one of the co-hosts of the podcast, So Get This, the Lore of Supernatural Fanfic, available on Spotify.
Okay, Melissa.
Hi, this is Kitty, who is joining us tonight and is clearly excited to be here. I've been a fan of the show since it started, and you can usually find me here on Continual talking about Supernatural or stalking fan fiction and published writers.
All right. And I'm Gail Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance, but all my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. Fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months, fell down the rabbit hole, haven't hit bottom, and I just consider myself an obsessed fan at this point. So Carole, kick us off with an episode we haven't talked about. What are some other, favorite? I don't know if we'll stop at 120. There are 327 to talk about. We like all but about maybe 2 of them. So maybe 2, but Carole, go ahead, get us started.
I'm going to start off with In My Time of Dying from season 2, the first episode of that season. We're coming off of that climactic or, enormous car crash ending of season 1. And it starts actually very quietly. We have Dean's walking around the hospital, doesn't know what's going on. He realizes that he is not as he should normally be because there's his body hooked up to all kinds of machines. Here's Sam running around being all worried. There's his dad who is worried, but not like you would wish your dad would be for the John Winchester A+ parenting. But the best parts of this episode are, as a plot device, we get introduced to Reapers who play significant roles in seasons to come. And we also have this beautiful scene, and my favorite scene in the whole thing, where Sam, distraught that he does not have contact with his brother, gets a Ouija board because he senses Dean is around. And they have a beautiful scene sitting on the floor of Dean's hospital room, and they have the dolly going around, or the 360 camera. It's just wonderful, where you're just panning around them and around them as Sam and Dean are communicating on via the Ouija board. And it's both so very brotherly as they like tease each other, but the bond and the love and, Sam's anxiety and Dean's need to watch out for his little brother, all of it is encapsulated in this really, really strong, beautiful scene. And so that's why it's on my list of 120 best episodes to watch. You want to know from the get-go, season 1, we saw Dean and Sam struggling really so much of the whole time. Season 2, this episode tells us why they are the brothers they are and how they react to each other. And it sets the tone for the season, establishes this new, stronger paradigm for us, and is just exquisitely done.
Okay. Yeah, that's such a good one. And they couldn't use Ouija because it's a trademark of Parker Brothers. So yes, it was a talking board, which is the generic for Ouija. Plus, notice that on the Ouija board box, it says ages 8 and up. So apparently that is okay for summoning, spirits from the ethereal realm. All right, Melissa?
Inquiring minds, exploring minds. want
That's
to know.
right.
And I've got my notes on my phone, so I'm just
Okay.
excuse me for that.
No, that's fine.
Regarding Dean from season 12, this one is one of those ones that I cry through the entire episode because Dean is slowly losing his memory. He's losing his mind. He is slipping away. And there's a scene where he's in the bathroom looking at himself in the mirror, and he knows it is that, if you have a loved one who has suffered from a dementia, Alzheimer's, it resonates, I think, even deeper. He knows he's losing, he knows he's slipping away from himself, from Sam, and it is heartbreaking. And then, of course, we have Rowena, who we're used to her being snarky, sassy, and she comes in and she's gentle with him. And that to me is like another knife in the heart, because it's not that Rowena can't be gentle, it's that she realizes that this is something so tragic that she can't be her snarky self. She is genuinely soft and tender, and it is just, that is the 2 tissue box episode for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so great to see that other facet of her, where she genuinely realizes this is such a, a sad turn of things and everything. Plus she has bouncy.
Yeah, she's bouncy hair. And we can see that, like, she started out as an enemy or a rival or a combatant or however you wanted to put it. But I think that's really one of those first moments where we see she genuinely cares about the boys.
Mm-hmm.
She may still be at odds with them over different things because her goals are often different than their goals, but she genuinely cares about them. And you fast that forward to what happens later in the show, and it's like you understand why she makes some of the choices she makes, because you see some of that here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go with Frontierland. This one is just so much fun. Sam and Dean decide that they want Cass to send them back to the 1800s so they can meet Samuel Colt and get the Colt so that they can destroy Eve, the mother of all monsters. And Dean is so excited about this because he is such a cowboy fan. And so he goes out, buys these outfits, and he's got a serape, and he looks like he watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and went out and tried to cosplay it. So badly. Yeah. So he's got this serape, and he's so excited about it. Sam meanwhile kind of looks like he walked out of a Tex-Mex tall shop, with the it's what we now call a Western shirt, but it's not actually what people wore in the West back in the day. So Cass obliges, but there are time limits and all these things. So they get sent back. And first thing that happens is people are looking at Dean going, "What are you wearing? Why are you wearing that?" And now Dean's gone from being so excited to, sorry, now he's all embarrassed. So he does end up getting a much better looking outfit. And in the course of things, he gets to introduce himself as a U.S. Marshal, and he gets to introduce Sam as a Texas Ranger. So this is another one of these cases where I really think that somebody on the writing staff was psychic, because of course now Jared is Walker, who is a Texas Ranger, and Dean, who ends up as the town sheriff for one of those fight at the OK Corral at noon in the main street, ends up as the sheriff, and of course, played a sheriff in Big Sky, and would have been a U.S. Marshal character in the movie Rust. So there's just this lovely parallelism there. And then we get to see Jared, we get to see Sam ride a horse badly. We know from Walker that he knows how to ride. Whether or not he knew then, I don't know, but Dean just watches him ride into the sunset and goes, "That poor horse," because Jared is riding every way you're not supposed to ride.
Well, and the horse was like deliberately too small.
Mhm.
Right.
I mean,
Yes, his
he's
legs
the
are
big
hanging
guy,
off
he's
like
the
a
big
pony.
horse. This is a little pony, you know. Poor
And
thing.
this is where we also get the idea of Samuel Colt having made the pentagram out of railroad lines with the Hellgate in the middle. So that's just a smart thing. The opening credits are a map burning like Bonanza, for those of us old enough to
Brilliant.
remember Bonanza. So you've got that Western map burning. They just did so many little things that were attention to detail, and they were trying to get a phoenix. They were trying to get the phoenix ashes, and then that Back to the Future package at the end where the UPS guy comes and says, "This has been sitting in our warehouse for 100 years, and it's supposed to be delivered here today." And there are just so many lovely touches in that one. So I'm going to go with Frontierland.
It's really great. It's beautifully done. They really committed to seeing it through, both with the Dean's fanboy,
Right.
attitudes and everything. And also then with the juxtaposition of like, hey, reality was not that romantic. Like he drinks his shot of whiskey and it's like alcohol. It's like, rubbing alcohol. And the saloon girl comes up to, and he's like, because her teeth are bad and stuff. It's hilarious. But yeah, and then that moment where they think, oh, we failed. And then their victory is pulled from the ashes.
Yep.
Literally.
Very literally.
Was this before or after they did the LARP episode with Charlie?
I'd have to look that up.
After.
I
think after.
Because I think it was after too, because one of the things that bugs me with this episode, and I love this episode, this would be on my favorite too, is, okay, you've LARPed. You've been around LARPers. You understand the concept even generally. Why didn't you pick up the phone and call, why didn't you find a LARPer to say, what do I do for this Western wear? Because even if that person doesn't LARP Western, they can open up their phone or open up their email and find somebody who LARPs that thing, because that's the thing within the LARPing community. Not that I would know that at all.
This is 2 seasons too early. LARP and the Real Girl was in season 8, and this is season 6.
All right, then never mind. Then okay.
The whole thing where Dean, at the moment he hears cowboy, he's there. He's gone. He's gone.
He is the rat bait himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and those clothes all came from his closet. He didn't buy those. Those were all in his closet.
There was a comment he made, that Jensen made, that he told his dad he was doing a cowboy episode, and his dad said, well, you've only been rehearsing for that since you were 6. So
love it.
That's
a great one.
All right, back to you, Carol.
Oh dear. I'm gonna go for, gosh, do I go for funny or do I go for drama? I'll go for classic. I'm gonna go for A Very SPN Christmas. That episode it's a gift to SPN fans. And in the first half of season 3, they are trying to find out who is killing somebody. They have very little clues, but somebody is visiting the houses, and it's not Saint Nick because he's eating the parents. So we have one of those quintessential Sam and Dean are mistaken as a gay couple moments. We have Sam and Dean inadvertently skeeve out the little elfin fairy girl when they're at Santaland, and he's like, no, I just want, and she's like, ew, because he just wants to watch, and they don't have kids, and she's like, ew. We have the brilliant moment where Sam and Dean have decided that the decrepit Santa Claus, who has a limp and smells like peppermint, must be the bad guy and burst into his trailer to find out that he's really just like a lush, and he's got like, you know, the huge bong, like what was the episode where the mind control, and he has the huge bong, so he has a huge bong and he smells like peppermint because he's drinking peppermint schnapps all the time. And they're like, what do we do now? And try to very badly sing a Christmas carol where they're making up the lyrics as they go because they don't actually know the lyrics to a Christmas carol. So some of these moments are just hilarious. But the best part is when they come to face with the true bad guys, who are a seemingly perfect suburban couple in little ugly Christmas sweaters and sweater vests, where Christmas decorations are so like have been barfed inside their house, but really they're pagan gods and it's time for them to be fed. So, but they can't, you know, God forbid Sam and Dean swear during things where they have their teeth pulled out and their fingernails pulled out, because then they have to, you know, put money in the fudge jar. And, you know, it's just beautifully, beautifully done. The two character actors who portray, this is terrible, her name was Marge, and I forget, was it Marge and Fred? They had those kinds of very stock suburban names, and they played it to the hilt, where they were every bit the bridge playing, fruitcake making, cookie baking, Christmas couple, but nope, they were pagan gods. And oh God, I just love that episode.
And if you play the part backward where Sam and Dean knock the Christmas tree over in order to get weapons, it looks like Sam and Dean are putting up a Christmas tree.
It's just fantastic. And again, we have a title card that breaks from the norm. And in fact, it's very, you know, like network holiday special with the lights,
Yes.
music, and everything of a very SPN Christmas. All of that is delicious into and of itself. But at the very end, we have a tremendously poignant moment where Dean, who is sliding down his last year, walks into the hotel room to find that Sam, after arguing against celebrating Christmas for the entire episode, has in fact decorated with a cheesy banner and a little Charlie Brown Christmas tree that's decorated with air freshener trees and fishing buoys, and has, you know, a couple of crappy presents wrapped up in Sunday funnies, and gives Dean a glass of eggnog that, in fact, in real life was spiked so heavily that the reaction you see on camera is, in fact, Jensen's reaction to drinking this eggnog that's more whiskey than nog. But it's a very poignant moment. Dean's like, why did you even do this? And he's like, because I needed to, you know, I needed to do this with you. I needed to give you this. And it's just really lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just such a great episode. It's filmed so well. That last shot pulling back out, so you see the boys through the window, you know, it's so
with
good.
the little ring of lights, so that you have that little multicolored glow.
Yeah, it's just one of the best episodes. Melissa.
Well, since we're talking about Christmas, let's talk about the last holiday. First of all, I love Mrs. Butters. She was one of my favorite one-shot characters. I loved that character. Loved that character, because she was so, we talk about that stereotypical. She was so that stereotypical mom. She gave the boys a mom that they never had and they always wanted. She's absolutely everything that Mary was not. And that's not a knock against Mary, because Mary was a real person. Mrs. Butters was playing this role almost. But it was really cool to see the boys being mothered in a way that wasn't overwhelming or overbearing. She exuded this bubbly, bouncy 1950s happy homemaker kind of thing. And she created a home for them. So they got that taste of not just the holidays, but somebody making their lunch. Somebody like they would go out on hunts. They're rushing out the door for hunts, and each one's got a lunch bag, and it's the right lunch. She was baking for them birthday cakes and just all the holidays that they never got to celebrate. They got that little taste of it. And then when you find out how she's there and why she's there and how all that came to be, there's a whole lot of horror, because it's like, yeah, she was trying, the thing she did to Sam and to Jack and all that stuff. You understand why. Like, at least I did. She wasn't a monster. She was trying to protect the bunker. She was trying to protect the men of letters in a way that she had been so horrifically taught. And so I'm glad that she got to leave and go back to her people. But there's a part of me that really wished that the guys that she could have stayed with them, because it was just such a joy to see, like, oh, I waxed the car, and oh, I did this, or I changed the tires, or like she just gave them a piece that they didn't know that they were missing because they never had it. And it was, I love that for them. And then when they set her free, it was like, well, okay, it was like, it wasn't like they were killing a monster. It was, they were returning her to her own life. And so it was okay that they didn't have these things anymore. And then Dean, of course, tries to bake a cake.
Which was so sweet.
It's so sweet.
She reminded me a lot of Alice from the Brady Bunch, or
yes.
I think it was Mildred from Remington Steele, the older secretary.
Oh, yes.
I loved Mildred. I loved her.
And so, yeah, I could definitely see, why hasn't there been fan fiction where she goes back to her people and says, I can come and go anytime, but I really like being with you boys. So I'll just come back and hang with you here. And then she could have been their third person.
Yeah, because like maybe her family was gone so she hung out with the youngins, but she realized that she really loved being in the bunker, and she really loved taking care of her boys. That would be a brilliant fan fiction. Can somebody write it, please?
Or even if she just popped in from time to time.
Yeah.
I was expecting her to show up in the big battle against God.
I was.
She was so powerful. She was so powerful. I loved the actress. She was so good. I mean, the moment when Dean and Sam walk in and there's the 12th of Christmas tree and the lights all up, and she's down there holding the plate of cookies, and she's just like and dancing around, and she's so cute.
And we got to see the boys, that joy when Dean's just absolutely bouncing at the top of the steps. We got so many subtle insights the whole way through. It was just a well done episode.
I wish we would see that actor at conventions, like even if it was only the conventions that are like close to where she's living or close to where she's working, because I would also love to see more of those one-shot characters at conventions. Like they could do a panel with just the one-shots to get a little bit of, because there are a lot of them that are really big fan favorites that we never get to see at cons, and it would be lovely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the conversation.
We get to see Sully, who, who was in Clap Your Hands If You Believe, the Xana. So yeah, well, I guess we just have to do this Twitter campaign for creation and say, bring back these people.
And it's so great because then, even seeing Sully, for instance, where we got a whole new appreciation of his character and everything that went into it, as well as behind the scenes stuff, which is always so fun to hear about and everything. So,
well, my episode, sticking with the cowboy theme, is going to be Tombstone. And this is where Sam and Dean and Jack and Cass are looking into disappearances and murders in this Western town. And they check into this motel, which is wall-to-wall cowboy. It's got like cowboy boot lamps, and it's got steer horns, and it's got pictures of all these famous cowboys from real life, and Dean can go down the wall and tell you who all of them are. And he is this little boy, so excited about the whole thing. And of course, later in the episode, we also get to see him in, you know, the Western suit with the little string tie and all that. But Jack is just watching Dean going, he really likes cowboys, doesn't he? Cass is like, yeah, just indulge him. So that was a lot of fun. And of course, you know, that's a fun episode because it kind of turned some of the expectations on its head, because the bad guy ends up being a famous gunslinger who is now a ghoul. And he's the one killing everybody, and the girlfriend, which is kind of a one-off on, I think, iZombie, is the very bouncy kind of
retro
rockabilly
mortician. Yeah. And so there's a lot of upending the tropes there with the episode, but just Dean's entire fascination with this whole cowboy thing we get to see again in Tombstone. And anytime we get to see one of the boys be excited enough about something to get that little glimmer of boyhood, there's just something really special about that episode. Back to you, Carol.
Yeah, I love the that woman is so great in that role, where she's got like the hair and the outfit and the makeup, and we knew she was a hot cookie. So as we've had some role playing going along here with, you know, cowboys and stuff. So let's talk about It's a Terrible Life. An episode that spawned 1,000 fan fictions because it's presented an early AU. This is in season 4. Presented us with a really interesting AU where the boys don't know who they are, but Sam is in a boring tech job, you know, of answer, you know, push the reset button, plug it in, unplug it and plug it back in. Wearing a horrible pale yellow polo, which he still makes look good. It still makes it look good. And Dean is a cleanse drinking, Prius driving corporate minion with his power tie and those shirts, the patterned shirts with a white collar. Oh, those were awful when they were in fashion, and they're still awful. And yet they are drawn to the essences of themselves, where they find a case, they solve the case, although they actually go to the website of the real Ghostbusters to get some of the materials and methods that they need in order to quell an angry spirit. But they find their way through all of the AU trappings to vanquishing an angry spirit, finding out, you know, who they are without knowing who they are, and that they are bonded together, that their bond supersedes the environment they're in, and to the point where Sam is even like, or Dean, one of them, I don't even remember which one it was, but one of them is like, hey, we could go do this. And the other one's like, what are you talking about? We don't have health insurance. It's wonderfully played. Of course, the whole thing turns out to be a trick, and they are angered by the trick. But the whole episode plays out in this AU. The boys had the bit between their teeth and ran with it. And it's absolutely delicious. And like I said, created this whole new subset where people were like, wow, this is such a great AU. There are so many possibilities. We can play this out, that a million stories have been written under its own particular fanfic tag of Swesson, because it was Smith and Wesson, not Winchesters. And just terrific.
Well, and the really funny thing, when they go to the Ghost Facers website to find out how to hunt the Ghost Facers learned how to hunt the ghosts from Sam and Dean. So it's it's, you know, Smith and Wesson going to Ghostfacer's website to learn something that the Winchesters taught the Ghostfacers. So I
It's
just
great,
love
yes.
those little things. Yeah. Yeah. Melissa?
This is going to be an odd choice. I don't think that most people would think of this one. The Benders. I really liked the Benders because I don't think you could go 15 seasons without them at least once in a while falling into a human monster. And the Benders was that perfect thing. It was the sheriff's brother who had been missing and blah blah blah. And it was just, they were horrific monsters. They were probably, if I had to rank the monsters that the guys ever faced, the Benders were actually pretty high up on that list of horrible, terrible, awful monsters. Because they were monsters. I don't care that they were human. And it was one of those episodes I just think that the show as a whole needed. They needed an episode with human monsters. They didn't need to revisit it, but that one episode of being able to say, look, not all monsters are monsters. And because it gives a perfect foil for not all monsters are actually monsters. There are vampires or this or that are not actually monsters. Thank you, Benny. So I loved this episode because it gave context to what they do, and just, it just reminded the audience that, hey, there are real world monsters, and they were able to kick their asses too. So
yeah. Cool. Well, and the Benders were especially monstrous because, unlike some of the creatures that the boys fought, those creatures might have been harming people and might have needed to be put down, just like you put down a grizzly bear that's killing tourists. But they were killing to eat. They were killing to survive. Now, bumped up against humanity, it's like any predator that wanders into the neighborhood and starts killing people. You got to get rid of them. But at least they weren't, not all the monsters were doing it because they were evil or sadistic or cruel. They were just hungry.
Right.
And Benders were evil and sadistic and cruel. They didn't have any excuse. And so, yeah, they were definitely the scariest monsters. Yeah.
So creepy when you see the little girl and the sheriff is trying to talk to her and say, can I help you? And where's your mommy? And all that stuff. And the little girl is just like, that's gonna hurt. Knock her out. And when Dean is all tied up and the dad is working back in the kitchen, and you notice that the wind chime is actually a jawbone with teeth. You're like, I'm in a really bad place.
I gotta go back. I missed that.
Yeah.
I gotta go back and rewatch.
Yeah, the wind chime is all human bones.
Yeah. It's super creepy.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pick Hunteri Hiroshi, which is, if you've ever watched the Bugs Bunny, especially the Chuck Jones era of Bugs Bunny, they are running into really odd phenomenon where this guy is robbing banks by putting a movable portal on the wall, a black hole. And at first they can't figure out why the guy always leaves these painted black holes on the wall, but he's able to go through it like in a Bugs Bunny movie. And in another case, an anvil drops.
That's a classic.
Smashes them out of nowhere. There's no anvil here. It's a bank. Why is there an anvil that dropped on somebody? And as you find this out, you find out that I'm blanking on his name. He was BJ Honeycutt Mash.
Mike Farrell.
Mike Farrell is a hunter that they figure out from proximity that, hey, isn't so-and-so one of Dad's old friends? And doesn't he live around there? And it turns out that he has dementia and he's in a nursing home, but he was also a powerful psychic. And so he sits all day watching Bugs Bunny cartoons, and his ability to actually warp reality is warping reality into a Bugs Bunny cartoon. And he's been manipulated by this guy who is using the portable holes and these other things to rob banks and steal things. And it's just for those of us who grew up on Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner and all that, because there is a moment when, the Roadrunner and the Coyote go past, and Sam finally kind of figures out what's going on. And Cass is more lost than usual because apparently Bugs Bunny doesn't play in heaven. Makes it less heavenly. But they finally figure it out, and they finally are able to get him to shut down his power, which he didn't really realize what was happening. So that's very poignant in the end, because again,
Yeah.
it caused this guy, what happens when you get Alzheimer's and you're a powerful world, reshaping psychic? We don't ask that question frequently enough. So, for all the humor of all the Bugs Bunny stuff, there was also this poignancy. But, and in the end, Cass was able to sever the guy's connection to his psychic power, and he left him with Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
Yeah.
And that's how he ends. He's smiling. All he hears in his mind now is Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And Cass says, I'll sit with him for a while. I like that song. And so, it was this wonderful interplay of humor and poignancy. So, Carole, back to you.
Let's go with celebrating the life of Asa Fox. This was a unique episode in that we don't often really get a glimpse into the hunter's world. We only see Sam and Dean's world, and we saw a little bit then when we saw like the Campbell family before Dean, when he had either the flashbacks or they go back in time to visit. In this case, we actually see other hunters gathering to mourn the loss of one of their own. And it's new to Sam and Dean. So they go there, and this is like a little bit of a new experience to them. There's a whole bit of extra drama because Mary shows up because she had initially saved Asa Fox as a child, and thus he became a hunter. And then there's a mystery, and people are being killed and all of this. But the best thing is watching this hunter's world, watching Sam and Dean interact with it, watching the other hunters all interact, and how close a network they are, because these are people who are in such a terribly dangerous profession, and how badly they need each other. And when the culprit is revealed, the worst punishment that can be visited on him isn't him being killed, isn't him being carted off to, law enforcement. It's the withdrawing of that network. He is now alone. He does not have any more recourse to his hunters, their help, their assistance, their knowledge, nada. He is out in the cold, and you see what a terrible blow that is, and how important the networking and support of this world is. So it's really an engaging episode to watch for all of that.
Okay. Melissa?
We'll see if Kitty will be quiet. My pick is also the same episode, but from a completely different angle and for different reasons. Kitty, please, hush. She's so excited. She is absolute about this episode. I'm telling you.
She has
everything.
Thoughts.
She has thoughts, right? Ditto. And I don't have my sign tonight. Where's my sign? Ditto everything Carole just said. And it's an interesting look at a bunch of things. Like, okay, so the Hunter Network was all close and everything, but it always seemed like John was on the outside. Why was John on the outside? Why were the boys always, like, you get the impression that the boys were shuffled from place to place when they were kids because John was hunting. If there's this huge hunters network, these hunters had to have moms, sisters, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, people who could have helped take care of the boys, in addition to just Bobby and Pastor John or Pastor whatever, and like there were opportunities, but it always feels like John was outside of this. Okay, this is also the episode we find out Mary was a hunter. Mary knew about the supernatural and yet did nothing to save Sam when Sam was a baby. Like, she didn't gather the hunters around her. She didn't tell her husband. She didn't ward the baby's room. She did jack nothing to save Sam. And that's why Mary goes on my list of Mary Winchester, A+ parenting. That's like unforgivable. And that's like that. This episode gives us that. We know that she's a hunter. So, like, you had the skills, you had the knowledge, you didn't even try. The other piece I love about this is Dean's locked outside and he's desperate to get into Sam, and he bursts in the door and he goes to Sam and he goes to Jody. Mom, who? Mom, who? He's checking on his brother and his real mom. Jody's not really old enough to be his mom, and we all know that, but we all have friends who are roughly our age or maybe just a little bit older who have that nurturing, mothering kind of personality. And so even though like we don't call them mom and we don't think of them as our moms, they still feel that a certain level of that maternal comfort. And Jody, I really feel, is that for the boys, even though she's probably only a handful of years older than Dean, if that. So I love the episode from that perspective, in addition to everything that Carole said, because I get my first notch in my Mary Winchester sucks as a parent belt, and we are reminded of how much more maternal that Jody is.
Well, and a couple more things from that I love. First off, in terms of Sam and Dean find out that they're famous in hunter circles,
Yes.
because guy says, didn't you die a number of times? And Dean's like, it didn't take. But Sam even says, Dean, people tell stories about us? And it does make you wonder, did John stay outside of the hunter circles because he knew about the demon blood with baby Sam, and he was in his own effed up way protecting Sam from the other hunters finding that out? I don't know. Yeah, A+. Then we end up with the Wendigo drinking game. Every time somebody mentions Wendigo, you got to take a shot. And this group says it a lot. And then there's the creepy guy who is like, he comes up to Sam and goes, hey, is it true? You got possessed by Lucifer. What was it like? And Sam's like, dude. And you think that the guy is a fanboy of Sam, but no, it turns out that he's a fanboy of Lucifer.
Yeah.
So those were also some other wonderful moments, as well as that moment when Mary and Jody are leaning against the car at the end, and Jody's basically kind of giving Mary marching orders on how to be a mom to her boys. So that was good too. I'm going to round us out with one more episode here, because we have once again blown through our time, and that is Shut Up, Dr. Phil. This is a funny episode because of the plot. It's a terrific episode when you realize who was cast in the roles, and that you get to watch Dean play marriage counselor. So you have got these bizarre things that are going on in this small town, and Sam and Dean start to figure out that all the phenomenons happening around this kind of power couple in town who are having marital trouble, and the people that they are blaming for breaking up their marriage, and all these weird things are happening. And of course, the couple turn out to be 700-year-old witches, played by Spike and now her name is
Cordelia.
Yeah, Cordelia from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So what? James Marsters and Charisma Carpenter, and beautifully played. It's kind of like just this spatting couple. And the only way they're going to be able to get stop all these people from dying is to broker some sort of peace between these. So Sam and you're like, I sense that you really still care about each other, that we really just need to use our words and talk about it. Then one of them will throw them against the wall, and then they'll yell at each other some more. And then the other one will go, but maybe if you just tried to see it from her side. And at one point, Dean ends up plastered to the wall with bees buzzing all around his head to shut him up. But for all their, this is a Winchester telling somebody to use their words and talk it out. For all their ham-handed marital counselor, abilities, which come in handy later again with Chuck and Amara, it does actually get the two talking to each other. And, they've been mad at each other since the Medicis, because he's like, no, I didn't sleep with that Medici chick. So they end up happy in the end. And then Spike comes back one more time and saves them from the hex bags because she didn't really want to leave any loose ends and he thought they deserved better. So they were another pair that I would have loved to have seen come back just because they were
fun.
They were fun and so perfectly cast and just, they could have been great frenemies as well. Well, we have run through our time. This is always so much fun and there's so many episodes to go through and so many things to love about them. But before we wrap up, let's let folks know where we can find you online. Carole?
On Facebook, you can find me at the TFWNC group. You can find me on Continual. On Twitter, I am true_firesign10. All of my fanfic is on AO3 under firesign10. Mind the tags. And as Ellis Colton, I'm an MM romance author with my debut novella, Prescription for Love, available on Amazon.
Very good. Melissa?
You can find me haunting the same TFWNC Facebook group. On Twitter, Tin Hat Daydreams, that's another one. Make sure you read the profile before you read that stuff.
And I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I'm on all the social medias as one or both of those. So if you spell them right, you'll find me. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business blog, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon on Continual. So we'll see you online.